Welcome to MSUA's Game Changers Live, where we speak with satellite and mobile connectivity leaders and talk about industry trends, new technologies, and what you need to know about the future of satellite mobile technologies and services. I'm your host, Lisa Dreer, and I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today, Michael Gertsman. He is the president of Square Peg Communications. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be
Absolutely.
here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for making time for it. Maybe you can start by giving us a little bit of background on yourself and Square Peg Communications.
Sure. So I actually ended up in mobile satellite quite by accident. Um, I was always very interested in digital signal processing and saw a job opening to do DSP-based modem design, and it turned out to be for the Inmarsat aeronautical system. So that's what really got me into it at a company called Skywave Electronics. And then from there, Skywave was sold and acquired by Calian, another name we still see in the industry today. And then a couple of years after that, Square Peg was born. So we spun out of Calian. That was about 25 years ago now, or just over 25 years. And since then, the team has a lot of pretty deep technical knowledge, sort of across the board in mobile satellite, and we've leveraged that essentially to try to get into all things that are mobile satellite communications. I could probably give maybe an illustration of this if we look at this the service that I talked about that got me into satellite, the Inmarsat Aero. Square Peg is on board. Well, basically, most long haul aircraft today are talking to air traffic control over SATCOM when they're over the oceans and so on, and probably about half of those are have our software on board for doing that ATC communications.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the other end of the link, we provide the modems and the air interface in the Inmarsat ground stations. So all the traffic that's going over Inmarsat for ATC and safety services goes through our equipment. And then on top of that, we do the test equipment that the manufacturers use to certify their terminals. So the terminals that are on board, line fit out of Boeing or Airbus, for example, with 777 or 787 or A350, for example, those all are certified using our equipment as well. So we sort of involved in that whole chain, and it's given us a bit of a it has to work kind of heritage, I guess, that really underpins everything that we do. We're based in Ottawa. We're a small company, but our customers are the leading aerospace companies around the world and new space companies as well.
Wow, those to get certified for Aero, especially. I mean, it's a pretty heavy lift. So, sounds like a great place to be in the market.
Yep, interesting.
Great. Well, maybe we can start by having you give a little bit of background on what you think will be the most significant changes for mobile satellite communications over the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, 3 to 5 years these days is a long time.
Sure.
At its core, I think mobile satellite is going to, do the same, fulfill the same role that it's always fulfilled, which is, connecting those that don't have a way to get connected another way. With that said, going forward, we see a lot of convergence now between mobile and satellite. And my perspective is that they're not really competitive with each other, but they're very complementary in both directions, actually. So, we see that as the technology is advancing, particularly with 5G, this convergence between non-terrestrial networks like satellite and terrestrial mobile networks is just increasing. It's getting faster and faster. And a lot of organizations out there are looking at how they can leverage the connectivity options that are coming out of these developments, and that's all being fed, of course, by this expectation their customers have of connectivity anytime, anywhere for either them or their equipment. So that's where we come in as these satellite companies are exploring, their options in terms of new services and how they can satisfy their customers. We work with them to simulate those in their lab. They can see how they're going to work or test what they're developing. And our most recent product we're working on in our Radio Link simulator is actually a hybrid 5G product. So it allows taking that next step of testing handovers between satellite and terrestrial. So we can, it opens up a lot of capabilities for operators, all of this new technology, and that's where we're trying to be positioned as well.
Wow, indeed. So when you think about, I guess going across those various networks, do you think that creating standards is something that is going to be necessary? I think there's been a lot of talk in the satellite industry recently about, hey, we really need to move more toward a standards-based approach. What's your view on that?
I think it's a hot topic these days. And maybe since we don't really have a stake in the game, I can give you my somewhat unbiased, hopefully, perspective. Traditionally, mobile satellite systems have basically always had to be proprietary. That's how they've evolved. And so you had, MEO and HEO and GEO and LEO constellations, and they're all operating independently, essentially. And these proprietary solutions, from a technical perspective, have a lot that's appealing to them because you can tailor them to what it is you're trying to do. But I look at it maybe a little differently and say, what we're seeing today and what we're looking for in the future are these, the name of the webcast is game changers, and I don't think you can funnel game-changing things through standards bodies in general. There's some exceptions to that, but so I always think there's going to be a place for proprietary systems. Having said that, clearly there's a lot of users out there who want interoperability and they want lower cost. And with the introduction of things like 5G NTN, you're going to see a lot of those capabilities being taken up by new entrants, and you're going to see the traditional satellite companies following along as well. So, I think there's going to be a place for both. At Square Peg, we don't really care. Our goal is just to make sure that our customers can do what satisfies their customers the best.
Got it. And I think that you're kind of alluding to something that is really happening in the industry. I mean, I think that we're in a time of maybe more shift and change than ever before. We see obviously a huge increase in the commercialization of space. We see a lot of new entrants, as you mentioned. How do you feel like these things are going to actually end up benefiting the users of satellite services?
Sure. Yeah, I think commercialization and new entrants are going to introduce a lot of new options for users. They're going to introduce a whole new range of applications. They're going to lower the end user price, from the competition. That's going to drive demand, and that's going to grow the market that satellite can address. I think the good news for those of us in the industry is that with 5G and so on, you're getting this growing expectation of users for all of those connectivity options. But the counter to that is going to make it interesting in the industry, I think, is there's going to be a lot of choices that have to be navigated. And we see that with our customers where both commercial and government trying to figure it all out. If you take the military, for example, the military are very focused on interoperability. They're focused on this hyper-connected battlefield where, ideally they had one radio that does everything. But in reality, that's not, we're not there yet. So, the next best thing for them is seamless interoperability, smooth handovers. And that's, again, where we come in with our products. We try to help our customers, explore these trades in their labs, beforehand, see what works, what doesn't work, and then take forward something that does what they need. And so I think all in all, though, it's those shifts that you mentioned are just all good for users.
Absolutely. So when you think about just actually delivering these commercial satellite services and seeing it from your perspective and in helping organizations accomplish this, what do you see as the biggest challenges to delivering these services successfully, especially as you're talking about hybrid networks?
Yeah, so I think satellite companies have always had a lot of challenges. It's never been an easy thing. Cost, form factor, speed, and all those things. Um, where I tend to see the real challenges in delivering something that's sort of reliable and works every time. That's what the user wants.
Mhm.
So I think as an industry, we can address some of that through design. We can focus very much on making the systems as easy to use as possible, as familiar as possible. That's again maybe where mobile, the commonality with terrestrial mobile comes in. All of that will reduce the user's frustration and the chance of error, that sort of thing.
Right.
But the flip side, for those of us at SquarePeg, not surprisingly, is test. And we think that testing is going to be critical to overcoming those challenges. So I don't think anybody would argue that testing isn't a good thing. Everybody tests, but what we at SquarePeg spend our time thinking about is kind of how to test the off nominal cases, the corner cases, the things that can cause outages that cause service providers a lot of grief and users a lot of pain. And we're strong believers in there being a sort of a deterministic, systematic way to go about ensuring that you have the quality. You really need three things. You need the right test cases, which means you need the right set of requirements that go with them. You need the right test tools, and you need to do lots and lots of testing. And if you're going to do lots and lots of testing, you need lots and lots of automation, because experience shows that if it's not automated, it doesn't get tested. It's just too big a job.
Sure. Yeah. So, as users are looking at various satellite services, what are some of the criteria they should really be looking at?
There's quite a variety of things users would want to look at. Ease of use, speed, reliability, latency, security, I think, is a big one these days. Coverage. But maybe going back to my theme, I think users are looking for predictable, reliable behavior.
Hmm.
And so if they can rely on a service, that they're going to be happy. So let me give you an example. In our work, we do a lot of testing of how do SATCOM systems behave when an aircraft flies over a given flight route. So our customers and their customers, like airlines, ask a lot of questions like, what's going to happen when it hits a congested area? Is it going to hand over cleanly between beams? But then you get into the sort of corner case. Well, what happens if the aircraft's banking when it does a handover? What happens if you get a temporary dropout during that handover? Does it recover? The fact is, sometimes it doesn't if you
Right.
don't take care. Can it switch between constellations reliably? And if it does, what does the application see? So there's just an endless list of questions. And
Hmm.
so if those questions can be captured in a good set of testable requirements, then that's going to lead to something that should keep users happy, I think.
Right. There's also, with all of the changes in the market, there's also a lot of growth. And I understand SquarePeg's also growing pretty quickly right now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, we're seeing, just consistent with the market, I think, there's this explosion in mobile satellite. And so we're out now recruiting, for embedded programmers and DSP people and testers, of course, and so on. So yeah, it's an exciting time for us to try to keep up with everything that's going on.
Great. So if people wanted to learn about open career opportunities at SquarePeg, is the best way for them to just go to your website?
Sure. Yeah. If you go to our website, and it's probably under About and Careers or something like that, or News, you'll see the job postings that we have right now.
Okay, got it. And your web address is?
www.squarepeg.ca.
Alrighty. Perfect. Okay. And, when we talk about users, I think one of the things that is a challenge for a lot of organizations, especially organizations that maybe haven't worked within the satellite industry for a long time, is that they need to know what new technologies are coming into the market and how they kind of position themselves for using those technologies. What are some of the things that they should be aware of, and what's the best way for them to learn about those things?
That's a good question. And interestingly, I think in the end it comes down to them knowing what their requirements are, and that's not a trivial thing for them to do. But really figure out what it is you need. And if you can figure out what it is you need, then you can go to those service providers, the ones in the industry, and find out how they can satisfy those requirements. But if you go down a level deeper, maybe to paraphrase Aristotle, excellence is never an accident. And so, I think he followed it with, it's the wise choice of many alternatives. So that's the job of the satellite experts, the satellite providers and operators and so on, is to try to navigate that plethora of choices, that connectivity options that are coming out now. Maybe if I went back to your question, though, I think the key thing would be sort of the 5G concept of a network of networks.
Mm-hmm.
So, the ability to use the right link at the right time to seamlessly move between terrestrial and satellite, between different satellite constellations. I think if that all works well, that can be a real game changer in terms of what satellite can provide.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe one more plug for our link simulator in that context. When we designed the product, we were looking very much at all these industry shifts, and trying to find something that would serve our customers moving forward through as all these things are changing. So we really took the approach of designing it from the ground up to reflect the reality of today and what's coming in the future. So that's full mobility, that's multiple constellations with any mix, that's wideband applications, that's 5G. So what we've tried to do is build a platform that can grow and adapt, has all that base, but can grow and adapt readily to whatever else comes down the pipe.
Wow. Well, that's a great thought to end on. Michael, I really want to thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your insights on satellite mobile connectivity and some background on SquarePeg Communications. We really look forward to catching up with you again soon.
All right. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. And I also want to take a moment to thank the Mobile Satellite Users Association for hosting these sessions. To learn more about the Mobile Satellite Users Association, please visit MSUA.org. And that's where you can learn all about our weekly newsletter, our regular webcasts like this one, and many other programs, and also learn how to become a member. So be sure to visit msua.org, and we'll see you next time on Game Changers Live.